The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library. Welcome to Getting to Know You. My name is Joe Nash. Today we're going to be talking about the Warren and Denyse Mackey Foundation. They have a wellness campaign up until April 15th that includes free screenings for cancer, among other things. We'll talk about that. And we also have with us one of her partners of the foundation from the American Heart Association is Kathy McCarthy. Welcome. And Denyse, welcome. Now, before we start talking about the foundation and your work, let me just ask you, your husband died 1 year ago. I just wanted to ask you how, I know anniversaries are tough, maybe the first one's the toughest, but how's your family doing and everything?
We're doing okay.
We're doing okay.
We've found a lot of inspiration and support and hope in what we're working on.
Okay. Why don't you tell us about Warren a little bit, because I think that may lead into perhaps why you started this foundation.
Completely.
From what I've been reading.
Completely. People would refer to him as the unofficial mayor of Albany, but the people that know him would speak to characteristics of somebody being a loving person, giving, helpful to everybody. It didn't matter if you were a cashier or a congressman, he would know everybody. And he always wanted to help other people. Led with faith. By this nature and spirit of who he was, and everybody would say he was just a loving individual. And
then unfortunately, he had some heart issues. Is that?
He was born with a congenital heart defect. He had a physically weak heart, which is the irony of this whole situation, because, for a man that was just full of life and full of heart to physically have a weak heart, it's just sad.
Okay. So then tell us about why you started this foundation.
We wanted to keep his legacy alive. There was an outpouring of sadness in the whole community, not just of our family. I think we wanted to capture that and harness it in a positive way. Certainly the heart of the Capital District was my husband. He loved this community, and we wanted to make sure that we could continue to have that giving spirit that he had and help provide and help people in the Capital District area. And then I would say third, we just wanted to be an inspiration for other families. A lot of people have lost loved ones through COVID, and if we could be a positive force and inspiration to others, if everybody that lost somebody would just hold on to one special, unique thing that made them great in this world, and we carried that forward, this world would be a completely better place.
Now, some of your partners, you have Albany Medical Center, the American Cancer Society, the Center for Donation and Transplant. Is that part of Albany Med?
No, that's the organ donation.
Organ. And the American Heart Association. So, Kathy, how did you guys get involved with the foundation?
Well, Denyse had a wonderful vision of improving health in the Capital Region and doing it through area churches to honor Warren. And one of our board members, Michael Poindexter, knows Denyse, and he said, "Oh, you have got to get together." And when Denyse reached out to us and we talked, we knew that this was a good fit. And I just want to offer all my condolences to Denyse and her family and assure you we're working for you and for Warren. And I just think A Heart of Hope honors Warren in such a wonderful, wonderful way. And it lets his legacy is as large as it ever was in the Capital Region through this.
All right, so this wellness campaign, one of the things is whether you have insurance or not, you're going to have free cancer screenings for breast, lung, prostate, skin, colon, cervical cancer, all cancers. I know that I know that during the pandemic, there's less, people were hesitant to go to, there's been less screenings. I don't know if that's, people are hesitant to go to them anyway, I think. But so how did you come up with the idea for, and how did you get Albany Med to foot the bill, I guess I could say?
Let me take a step back. First, I would say Heart of Hope came from Romans 12:12 spiritually. Okay. And the name of it just conjures up everything who Warren was. A person just filled with hope, and despite having physical ailments, you would never know it. He always had a smile on his face. We have 3 areas around organ donations, elevating awareness around heart and wellness, and then the third is cancer that you were asking about. So under cancer, the reason that cancer became one of our pillars in our foundation is that I myself got colon cancer right before the pandemic started, and ended up finding out that I also had the BRCA gene. And the BRCA gene increased my risk of cancer like 67% for ovarian cancer, in the 80s for breast cancer, elevated risk of pancreatic, skin, and colon. So I became extremely passionate around preventative services. I went through 6 surgeries during COVID and eliminated organs of risk. And so I'm very passionate about screenings and preventative care. So that's where this pillar around cancer was developed as one of our 3 areas, and in a partnership with Albany Med that literally just started with a lunch conversation with James Kellerhouse, who's the vice president of the foundation there. They are very passionate around trying to bring services into the community, not have people come to them, but for them to be really ingrained in the community, helping people. And I think he saw us as a conduit to help make that happen. In fact, it was probably my conversation with him that helped crystallize that one of the value propositions that we have as an African American organization is that we could help bridge national organizations and bring, everybody wants to help the African American community, but they don't always know how to get the services into the community, and we could serve as a bridge for that.
And how is your health at the moment? Are you?
Thank God I'm cancer-free.
And so, Kathy, the Heart Association, how are you going to be participating in the preventative care with the foundation?
Yeah. So we have provided a lot of resources to all of the churches who want to participate. We've provided information and education, and we've put a lot of focus on blood pressure. High blood pressure is a huge risk factor for heart disease and stroke, for any kind of cardiovascular disease. So we've provided websites that people can go to where they can see how to take their blood pressure, know what those numbers can be, and we're offering some education about how a nurse's ministry at a church might conduct a blood pressure screening, or how the congregation might just engage with self-monitoring blood pressure, if you just check that. And then we have some social media graphics and little bits of information that the churches can share.
And then I know...
sorry to interrupt you. She's bringing up a great point around churches. I didn't mention that.
So. I was just going to go to that.
Okay.
Yes.
Heart of Hope was born out of the notion of leading with our faith, and Warren was very involved in church community. So we initially launched this through churches in the Capital District area, and working with Kathy and the other organizations, we provided on a Google Drive all this information that they could share, because recognizing many of us are still working in a virtual environment. So we created campaigns that they could be used virtually rather than having to be face-to-face, sharing awareness around the 3 initiatives.
And how many churches are involved at the moment?
Right now we have 20 churches that are registered.
Just Albany area or Capital District?
Just the Capital District area.
And then it'll be on the screen, the foundation's website, and the churches themselves. But you don't have to be through the church to get these screenings, do you?
Exactly. So we led by that, and certainly we're hoping that many more churches will participate, but these services are available to anybody. I mean, anybody that has a need for health screening, we want to help. The cancer screening services is available to anybody until April 15th. They would simply contact a phone number at Albany Med that we can provide.
Okay. Yes, and that number will be on the screen too. It's 518-262-0760. And whether you have insurance or not, it's free.
Correct. correct.
Now, was that your idea, or was that Albany Med's idea?
Albany Med.
Well, good
You know, the other blessing behind this, Albany Med kind of set the rate and pace of when we were doing this and
Okay.
how long we were doing it, and they picked the dates. And they picked the dates of February 1st to April 15th, and this is when you know God's in the middle of it, because that was the day that my husband died, and April 15th is his birthday,
Oh, really?
which I just think is beautiful.
Now, I know that we're filming this is February 3rd. You already had some events. How was the concert the other night? You already had a concert.
We ended up having to cancel the concert because of COVID.
All right, and then
But we had Play Your Heart Out.
you had a basketball event last night. Why don't you tell us about that? So the one young woman you helped sounded
I'm still glowing from the feeling of.
It was so wonderful.
And you were there too, Kathy?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Yes,
yep,
so
yeah.
in partnership with the American Heart Association, and I'll let Kathy share, but they have an organization called Cardiac Kids Program. There's approximately 90 kids in the Capital District area that were born with congenital heart defects like my husband. And for our first year, we partnered with the American Heart Association. There's a little girl by the name of Peyton. Peyton is 8 years old. She had 2 heart transplants, a kidney transplant. She suffered some strokes along the way. She was in a hospital. She's from the Capital District, but she was in the hospital in New York City at the same time that my husband was undergoing his bridge for surgery, for waiting for an organ donation. And she was our glimmer of hope, just to see her flourish and survive and to go through a second heart transplant in a matter of 8 years.
All right, so and did you meet this?
Yes, we've known Peyton for a while,
that's right.
since she was a very little girl, and she is just a firecracker. And last night, so as part of what she was able to do at the game, the team really welcomed her in. So every time they had a huddle, Peyton would jump up and say, "Wait, that's me, that's me." And she was in the middle with the team. She was dancing with the dancers, and she just looked so healthy and so happy, and it was terrific.
So we did the basketball game in partnership with SUNY at Albany, and they were just so amazingly embracing. I mean, she truly was the honorary coach of the game. They had a whole experience from 2 o'clock until the game ended at 9 o'clock. She was out cheerleading and dancing, and it was awesome.
So it was
awesome.
so inspiring. It's a tough time all the way around with COVID, and the Mackey family's been through a lot, and Peyton's been through so much. But for those few hours, we just had the best time and saw her so healthy.
Well, speaking of that, one of your partners is the Center for Donation and Transplant. Tell me about that place. And unfortunately, your husband, was he waiting for a heart transplant, or he had some? I heard he was a big guy. Was that a factor or something, or how would that? Tell me about that a little bit.
So yes, he had cardiomyopathy for a period of 10 years. They ended up recommending that it was time to start the organ donation transplant
So he would have been
process.
in his 40s then, or 50?
He was 55.
Okay.
55. So he got on a list, and we were doing a surgery that was meant to bridge him until the time that he actually got an organ donation. It's called a LVAD machine that would have physically taken over pumping his heart for him rather than his body pumping the heart. He consciously did this knowing it was, a very, very significant surgery, but it was with his faith that he was leading for a successful outcome to it. But I think the importance and why we put organ donation in this campaign is that he represented one of 8,500 New Yorkers that are waiting for organ donations. And of those 8,500, 1,500 people have been waiting for more than 5 years.
This is not just hearts,
all organs. And, he was on a list for 3 months, and that was too long. So we're hoping through this campaign and drawing awareness, one donation can save 8 people's lives. 8. I mean, what kind of return on investment can we get anywhere? 8 times return. So we're hoping that other people will consider donations of their organs upon passing, and through this organization, Center for Donation and Transplant, they've created a website that's in Warren's honor and recognition, so anybody that registers through there, it will be through his legacy.
I think I read New York State is one of the lowest states where people sign up for organ donation. Is that what, did I read that somewhere?
And I'm learning more and more
Okay.
myself as we get into this. But yes, we're one of the lowest states as far as having access to donors, and yet have one of the highest needs.
Okay. And then let me ask Kathy about the Heart Association. You're working with the churches and with the foundation. You were saying the heart issues in the African American community is it higher in the African?
It is higher in the African American community. 50% of black adults suffer from some sort of heart disease, which is much higher than other population groups. That blood pressure that I talked about is very high. Blacks are at double the risk for having a stroke. So it's really very high, and we really need to address it.
Okay.
And the Heart Association is really looking at everything through a health equity lens, because everybody deserves the right for a long and healthy life.
Okay. So I think, let me ask you, this is farther in the future, but you have some events coming up in July. You're having was it a basketball tournament and a golf tournament? That'll be on the website. There's information about that?
We, last year, so realize that we've only been in existence we incorporated in April of last year. So in a very short period of time, we've had 3 pillars of focus. One around educational scholarships. We were able to give away 5 scholarships for $10,000. Second area is around youth development. So last year we did a community day that was just one day in Arbor Hill for the kids, and it was largely centered around basketball, which was a passion of my husband's. This year we hope, with appropriate funding, we hope to be able to make it a whole week camp in his honor and end it with a community day. And then we're also having our inaugural golf tournament.
Okay. Well, you sound like you're going to be raising a lot of money.
I hope. I hope, because we have a big vision of what
Now,
we want to
I also
do.
read on your website, your 2 daughters, now they're still in high school, but they are your other 2 board members. Now, are you putting them to work, is my question.
Well, first I have to say part of it just takes brains and vision. My daughter's heart said, "Mom, if we keep people speaking Dad's name, his spirit and his legacy will never die." And that's really what launched this entire foundation to begin with, and that was my daughter, Michaela. Madison is also a board member, and we've now actually expanded, and we have 3 other board members involved as well.
Okay. Now, every picture I've seen of your husband, he does seem like he was pretty full of life. And I'm going to ask you to tell the story only because I read it, and it was a great story. Tell us how you met. I just thought it was the greatest story.
My girlfriend was getting gas at the mobile gas station in Latham at exit 6, and she literally walked up to him and said, "Are you married? I have the perfect woman for you." And we ended up meeting on a blind date at Pizzeria Uno in Latham at the time, and I fell in love with him because he could not get off his phone. That phone was ringing left and right, and average person would think it was so rude that we're on our first date, and he's like answering the phone, but I'm in sales, he was in sales,
Right,
and
so
it was just a natural connection.
So you understood what it is. Okay. So, have I forgotten anything? I don't know if I followed what you gave me completely, but if I forgot, is there anything else you'd like to say about either the Heart Association's involvement or your foundation? It'll be on the screen, the foundation. There's a lot of information on the screen, on the website, how to get involved, how to donate money, how to sign your church up, who to call to get a free cancer screening.
I don't know that I really nailed the call to action of how churches can get involved, how people can get involved for the screenings.
No, it's on. Okay, sure. Why don't you explain that?
So any other churches that would like to get involved, we'd love to obviously have everybody engaged in this in the Capital District, because I think it's a great opportunity to offer these services to the community. They can simply go to our website, wdmackeyfoundation.org, register, and then there's a 2-page document on there of information on how to get started, and we will establish connection and help them get going.
And you already have over 20 churches.
And we have 20 churches registered today, and certainly the free cancer screenings that Albany Med are offering, it's not just limited to people that are in church. It's there for anybody that's in need, whether it's somebody that hasn't gotten screened, somebody that doesn't have insurance. We want to be a vessel and a vehicle to help them get those services.
And we know that there's more than 20 churches in the Capital District.
A lot of room for expansion.
And it's any, for the screenings, it's any age, any, there's no restrictions?
It's aligned to the health guidelines. So, for instance, colon cancer has just been dropped to age 45, so they're going to certainly... This is another point I guess I should make. So they are doing... the entire process of what Albany Med is doing is completely different. They've transformed their entire process with a dedicated phone line for people to call around Heart of Hope. That phone line is going to be manned by an oncologist social worker, and she's going to assess that person's needs. They're going to figure out what screenings do they need that are appropriate for their age. You know, a lot of people, so I'm learning, don't even have a primary care doctor. They wait until they're sick and they go to the urgent care or the ER. If they need a primary care doctor, they're going to facilitate that for free. If they need multiple screenings and somebody's working and we can only, make the connection happen on a certain day, they're going to try to schedule appointments that work around that person. They don't want anybody to get lost in the system, in the process, so it's meant to be like a concierge service to help people.
And I think we all know that there's hesitancy sometimes in doing these kinds of things. I know for myself, I am guilty too, as much as anybody. Well, thank you so much for coming. That's the Warren and Denyse Mackey Foundation, and we'll see you next time on Getting to Know You.